Welcome everybody back to another episode of What the Devil, episode 28. We have a lot to talk about. Community Shield, it's just in a couple of days, boys. The season is finally coming back. But what we need to touch on first is transfers. Remember, if you are watching on YouTube but you can't watch the video, you can listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Latest transfer news, obviously, come to United District, us boys. But yeah, about the transfers, people are getting worried. We started the window really well. You know, we had Xerxes through the door just at the end of the Euros. We had Yoro, shock transfer, just moments, but it felt like moments afterwards. And since then, everything's dried up. There's been, talks about Ugarte, are we getting him, are we not? All of this, all of that, we've spoken plenty about of it. But there's been a lot of worry in the last week about the lack of activity since the flurry of sales we had. So obviously we had Greenwood went, Kampala went, Alvaro Fernandez went earlier in the window, Donny van der Beek went as well. And it feels like United are in a bit of a stalemate. And I, for one, think that people are overreacting a bit. Because although the transfers aren't complete, and although there are a few, they've taken maybe a bit longer than what we actually wanted, such as the Ligt, etc., they are 90% done. There isn't actually much more to do apart from to pressure, let's say, Bayern into accepting a fee, which I believe we're not too far off, for both Mazraoui and De Ligt. So I really think there's been a bit of an overreaction in terms of it's not like these deals won't get done, which is what I think some people are fearing. Yes, it's a little late, but I really think there's a bit of an overreaction there with the transfers.
Yeah, no, it's somewhere in the middle, I think, because the problem is that we still can't sell the main players in our squad. It was something that it really becomes stark in some of those pre-season games where you were looking at our squad and you were going, he shouldn't be here, he shouldn't be here, he shouldn't be here, he shouldn't be here. And that's the stronger, obviously it comes with players being at the Euros and Copa America, but yeah, because the players you mentioned there, they are kind of, all of them were not part of United's squad last year. Greenwood, Van der Beek, Alvaro Fernandez, none of them were really parts, and we need to start getting rid of the actual parts of the squad which were a problem last year, which was always going to be harder than we imagined. But I think, yeah, it is getting a bit hard. But like you said, the deals which we want to make are essentially done. Once we sell a potential midfielder, we can bring a midfielder in. If Wan-Bissaka's deal actually ends up going through, we can get a right back in, and we need. The problem is Lindelof. I don't see where's he going to go if he goes, because yeah, that's the problem. A lot of these players, there's just no real teams I can imagine them going to at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I saw someone say yesterday, which I think is a very good point, is that for years the Glazers have just run the club really badly, and you're never going to undo all of that in one window. So whilst we did have brilliant business like Lenny Yoro, we are going to have to, iron out some, creases, and that is going to take a lot of time. Like, it's not just going to be undone. And that's where selling players is difficult, because look, Wan-Bissaka's reportedly demanding a payout to leave. And we've given him the power to do that. Would Wan-Bissaka realistically be able to say, right, I'm going to go, I want you to give me this much money, and it's a ridiculous sum of money, if we didn't allow it? And this is the first time I was on this pod, we spoke about the contract, and that's one of the problems. The contracts we've given these players make it so hard to sell them. Now he's in, the last year. He's
in a power position right now, really, isn't he? Because he could just wait out the next year and then get a big wage on a free contract next year.
Exactly.
So he's kind of got a win-win situation.
Even with Sancho now back in the squad, some are saying they still think we'll sell him, but it's going to be very hard to sell him unless United accept a big loss and he accepts a big pay cut, because clubs in Europe are not going to pay the salary he's on. So we've shot ourselves in the foot over years of being run badly, and that is one thing. But like Dylan said, we're actually quite close. So Mazraoui and De Ligt, I think we'll get there. I think we'll get that over the line. Sander Berger in recent days is reportedly, speeding up. I think, again, we'll probably get there. He is a stopgap, really, but I don't mind it, to be honest.
The market's not that amazing for the DMs. I mean, people could have argued maybe we could have went for João Neves a bit more, but if we're not going for Ugarte at 51, I know that people would probably argue he's a much better player, but it doesn't seem like we can afford to pay that much for a midfielder.
The problem is he's not really a DM, and there's a lot of issues that he doesn't fix for us. Yeah, I think him and Kobe they're the same kind of player, but Neves, he wouldn't have fixed the issues. We could have pushed for Amadou Onana a bit more, but Villa sold the project to him, and at the end of the day, look, he fits the team there. He's got Champions League football there, and we couldn't put the money up at the end of the day. So he would have been a good one. I increasingly think we are going to wait it out until next summer before we make a big six signing, and this year will be a bit of a stopgap. But I also think Toby Collier is going to see a lot of minutes, because whilst he's not entirely ready yet, athletically speaking, he's just better than a lot of our midfielders right now. Like, he brings legs.
That's what we're missing.
That's what we're missing. At the end of the day, like, he'll do a job on the ball. He's got a development to do there, but he's competent. He'll do the job, and he'll just offer some. And I think that's the idea behind Berger as well. He's not going to be the spectacular player on the ball. He's not going to be like the best DM in the league. He's just going to come in and increase the physical floor of the team, and that helps us cover spaces a bit better.
Yeah. With Collier, it's really, I don't know if you guys saw his comments the other day, but he is aware of what he's good at and what he's bad at, which is quite, obviously it's, as fans, you watch the players every week and you could probably say, oh, it's obvious that he needs to work on his passing, but it's nice to see him kind of acknowledge it. And like you said, even if he needs to improve on it, but at his current state and with the current state of our midfield, he's probably going to be an important squad player next season unless we randomly sign two solid midfielders. But yeah,
I mean, look, if I next Friday walk into Old Trafford, I see the lineup and I see Collier, Mainu, or Mount and Fernandes as the midfield three, I would not be annoyed. I'd think actually there's quite a sensible midfield three to play. And I say Mainu or Mount because obviously Mainu's not had as much playtime yet. Mount's been playing, and I think Mount physically, what he brings, he'll see a lot of minutes this season.
Especially with how we're setting up with the press. I think him and Collier, both of them were probably our two most important players in pre-season in that pressing aspect.
I would make the claim that Mason Mount is actually our most valuable player out of possession.
Yeah,
in terms of how much
it's maybe theoretically, but it's hard to say that genuinely because we've not seen him enough.
Yeah, not seen him in the game.
But I do want to see. But on the transfers, I feel like what's happened with United is there's been one less big sale than the club were expecting. Yeah. So Greenwood,
Sancho staying.
Yeah. So
it's
the thing. It's the Sancho and Casemiro. I think they were expecting Sancho, Casemiro, and Greenwood. I think the club were maybe expecting two of those three to go, and two of those three, as it seems, are staying. Saudi Arabia haven't, in our eyes, stepped up.
You probably could argue that you expected all three to go.
Yeah, but really? I mean, in an ideal world, all three, but realistically, at least two of them. But only one of them's gone. And I feel like with the De Ligt deal, I would say 90% done, right? Yeah. The Mazraoui deal, 90% of the work is done. And with Sander Berge, it also seems already like 90% of the work done in terms of he'd be happy with the contract. He's making a big step up to United. There's going to be no issues in that way. So with all three deals, the only thing is negotiating that fine little bit with the club. But so I feel like if we had that one extra sale, we went Casemiro for 30 million, 35 million to Saudi Arabia, or Sancho for 35, 40 million to wherever, it just seems like neither of them are going to happen. Yeah. And so therefore we don't have that extra couple mil kind of almost breathing space to finalise the transfers. I
mean, one thing that is nice is there, as well as Xerxes, there was talk about a versatile forward. And you could argue that Sancho actually fills that gap if he is back in the squad. So, swings and roundabouts. But Casemiro, that is a problem that we've not been able to get rid. And it feels like McTominay's being sold almost because we couldn't tell Casemiro.
There's been reports about that recently. I think that it's almost like the club expected Casemiro to be the one to be sold. And you could maybe argue that they'd be in a stronger negotiating position with McTominay. I mean, it doesn't help, especially with the De Ligt stuff, that Euro got injured, because that puts you at a negative with negotiations with Bayern. It is just unlucky, that part, because I know Bayern need to sell to Bayern. They want Jonathan Tah, which could influence the deal in the coming days. But it doesn't help when you're trying to act as if he's not going to be maybe first choice. You can negotiate, you can take your time, and then your new signing gets injured and you need him for the first game of the season.
I think the thing that helps is that we were always going to go for De Ligt regardless, and I'd actually say De Ligt was probably going to play a little bit more than Euro this season anyways.
Yeah, but I'm speaking about how United would probably present it to them. But it always seemed likely to happen, no matter what.
I think with McTominay as well, I think was always a player where, okay, if we get the right offer, we're not going to block him from leaving. But now they're actually actively looking to get rid of him because we couldn't get rid of Casemiro. And it is, you do feel for him a bit because it is, he's grown up with the club. As much as we know he's not the most spectacular player, he does bring a lot of good
So what's
qualities.
actually been said with McTominay and by who?
So,
Because I think I've missed this.
so Sky have basically, and I think a couple of other reporters have said that Fulham won't go above 20, which is the problem because United were looking between 25 and 30, which, I mean, it's a small gap really, but...
No, 5 million's a lot.
Yeah, but you are, from United's point of view, he is, for all everyone complains about, he was an important player for United last season, and with our current midfield depth, you might need him during the season. So, yeah, it's a complicated one, and yet, like you said, if Saudi were still looking at kind of aging big name profiles, then we'd be sorted because they probably would have put a 30-40 million bid down, and then we'd have some breathing room. But I think that's something that, with the complaints about not getting a deals over line, that is something that people were just forgetting, that we are in a crap financial position. There
were some I think it was a bogus report, but I was really hoping it was true. I saw something about Al Nassr going for Anthony, and I was so sure it's not true, but I'm like, look, please.
I think this window is a case of seeing who blinks first across almost the whole of Europe, bar the couple deals here and there which are very straightforward one-to-one deals, or
Chelsea,
or unique deals, or Chelsea who sign a new player like they every day and then loan them out, and then they end up, I don't know where they end up in Europe, but like, so aside from deals like the Euro deal, for example, which is a very unique deal, or PSG going in for Neves, where there's a release clause and there's a set fee, and there's like
PSG going for way more.
Yeah, they went below it though.
But in terms of,
that was a strange deal though.
There's like a sort of, there's a realistic benchmark. Then there's no like sell to buy to sell scenario there. With the ones where clubs need to sell to buy, which is the moment this summer, because everyone seems suffocated by the FFP, whatever it's called, profit and sustainability rules. It's a case of seeing who blinks first. So with United, it's, are they now going to blink on De Ligt after Euro's injury? With Bayern, are they going to blink with the pressing need of needing to sell before they can buy? How close they think they can get to that deadline?
And one point on that is something that came out earlier today. I think it was from Bild, mentioned about how Bayern Leverkusen are putting a kind of deadline on Jonathan Tah to buy him. So that could also, it's almost all these moving parts, because if that happens, then they'll be more inclined to work with United to find an agreement.
And the season's about to start for a lot of clubs, and whilst we have until the end of the window, clubs want to have their squad sorted for the first game of the season. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago in England, we had that shorter transfer deadline, which did put English clubs at a bit of a disadvantage, but it's because you want your squad mostly sorted. Maybe room for one or two rivals. You want your squad sorted for the first game of the season.
I'd honestly be happy if we managed to get De Ligt in by Fulham. I think we can live without if Mazraoui takes a little bit longer, or a midfield. They're both important signings, but I think as long as we get, especially, this is recorded obviously before the press conference where Ten Hag will speak about ahead of Man City. But if Lindelof and Maguire are out because they haven't been in training, then you've got Lisandro Martinez and Johnny Evans fit. And it feels like the end of last season where we were posting that we had no centre-backs fit and Casemiro was starting there. So I feel like that's the only immediate concern to me, where I'm like, this is the player we need in before the start of the season.
Harry Maguire's an injury up, hasn't he, or something?
They're both doubts. So Lindelof and Maguire are both doubts. So Maguire missed out on the Liverpool game with due to precaution, and then Lindelof came off at half-time due to another precaution, is what Ten Hag said. But I've got a bit of a bone to pick with Aaron Wan-Bissaka and what's happening with this, because you've got United need to sell Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka's, there's been the extension on his contract, and there's that whole rumour of potentially United put a clause in the contract saying if they extend the deal to protect the value and the player's then sold, the player then gets half of the transfer, etc. Not sure how true that is, because it's only been said by one guy on Twitter. But the demanding 7 million thing, to me, from Aaron Wan-Bissaka's position, doesn't make any sense, because although you said before it's a win-win, I don't see it like that, because we know he's not going to be playing loads of football next season if Dallow's okay. So Wan-Bissaka is going to be a bench player at 26, 27 years old.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's going to be starting for West Ham week in, week out. And he's going to do that at that prime age for 7 million. And then if he does that, he doesn't even get the 7 million. And then it just turns into a bit of a mess.
Yeah,
I
don't know.
I don't understand
because also
Wan-Bissaka's positioning.
But
here.
also from his point of view, there's two options. There's 3 options on the table. He stays at United at the moment. He stays at United. He goes to West Ham or Inter, which seems to be his preference as per reports. And maybe that is something that if United were instead looking to bring in Dumfries and do that swap deal, he'd maybe be a bit more open to it. But yeah, he's in a power position right now, and that's United's fault at the end of the day.
It's just the action doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
me, because if you're demanding 7 million, which is what was reported by West Ham sources, which are people who cover West Ham, etc., whereas other reports have said it was 3. It's just 7 million to me seems nuts. I don't know how much he's on, but that can't be too far from his annual wage, 7 mil. And almost demanding so much means you're less likely to get anything at all. Because if this doesn't work out, he sits on the bench, doesn't get his West Ham move.
But realistically, if he stayed, he'd still get minutes, because Dallow probably can't play 50 games again this season, or even if he can, Luke Shaw can't, and then Dallow will have to. So if he stayed, he'd still get some minutes, and then he's got a year free contract, and he basically gets a better wage bill at a new club because they don't have to pay a transfer fee for him. I think that's how players probably look at it, but it's just a bit of an annoying situation that hopefully gets ironed out. But I don't really blame Wan-Bissaka for it personally, just because we've put him in that position of power. Because United...
Yeah, it's just... it might just be that it's grating me
frustrating.
from the perspective that it's killing us. Because it's like Wan-Bissaka's like the domino that needs to fall.
I think
almost
as
to
well.
start with.
I was thinking this the other day, and it's like you don't expect it from Wan-Bissaka because we've all gone, oh, he's no trouble. He's amazing. He does everything right. He's the perfect professional. Which I mean, I'm not kind of going at him for this because, as I've said, we've given him the power. It's United's fault. And also, I don't know where I heard it, but he has not got. I think from his point of view, it might be that in these 5 years, he's been a good servant for the club, been consistent. We've known what we got from him, what everyone knows, and he's not got a contract extension, a bonus. So maybe it's from his point of view that he spent 5 years at the club, 5 years at the club, but and he's not got like a bigger wage since he signed. It might be something to do with that, but yeah, it's an annoying position that hopefully we can fix.
On the flip side, though, you'd say when he came in, his wage was too
Too
high
high.
for the point
That's
he was
fair.
at.
Yeah, that is fair.
And he's not exactly been earning like little money.
yeah. He's not been struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did pay, 45, 50 million for the bloke as well.
Yeah, and then
it just feels like that's the one domino that needs to fall. Before it might have been Casemiro, that was what we expected to be like the transfer that would then kick off everything else. But if Wan-Bissaka goes and we get the 18 mil, I think from it...
I was thinking, that's actually quite... Considering going into the last year of his contract, it's a decent fee. I was expecting... I feel like there was numbers like 10 to 15, which I know is 15's not far away, but I was expecting it to be on the lower end of that.
I think we all kind of accept we paid a lot of money for Wan-Bissaka, probably over the odds a little bit. So
100%.
All things considered, it's not the worst fee to get for him.
Yeah. It might just be from my perspective of it annoying me because I know, I feel like, sell Wan-Bissaka, that gives you then breathing room with FFP because you're 18 million more away from the big red line, whatever. Yeah.
It's the domino effect as well, because as soon as it happens, Mazraoui comes in.
I think both transfers
and
happen.
also that means, Fulham blinked, or West Ham blinked.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? Because selling players, before it happens, you want, because, God, David Beckham's still our, fourth or fifth most transfer fees. So it's like, you want United to hold kind of their position, especially with this McTominay deal, Fulham only offering 20, you're like, nah, we should hold our position. But at the same time, when they don't come in for another bid and you're stuck with a player that you don't really want for another year, you're going, should we have taken the lower bid? So it's like, it's about finding that position in the middle almost where...
One thing I saw last night, apparently West Ham looking at Trippier, and he's just like an entirely different footballer to Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
Probably almost like polar opposites even. So
And also much older.
yeah, so I feel like, all right, that might just be them trying to speed up Wan-Bissaka and try and basically send a message to him saying, right,
either come or don't.
Either, yeah, like lower your demands. We want to have you, but we're not gonna, piss around and ruin.
Yeah, because they're not going to pay pay part of that 7 million fee, because that technically could happen, but they're not going to do anything like that, especially when they're probably offering him good wages as well as paying that transfer fee. So, yes, hopefully it gets sorted, because like you mentioned at the start, all these deals are just on the edge, and we just need something to tip in order for them to go.
Which is why overall I'm not that worried.
Yeah, I'm not massively worried. The Euro injury is just the killer, really, because I wouldn't be too worried about De Ligt for the first games of the season if we had Euro going into the start, but because that's happened and Maguire and Lindelof are out, because Maguire will probably be potentially out. They could be back.
We'll see what Ten Hag might have just said 2 hours ago, that they're out for 3 months. We don't know. But so but.
De Ligt goes up to 70 mil.
It's jarring that it seems like as soon as we seem to start getting some smooth sailing in the window, there's a hitch. But there's always going to be hitches.
One thing as well that we haven't mentioned, it was a summer with international tournaments, which always kills a transfer window a little bit, because everything starts 3-4 weeks after it does in non-tournament windows. So we're not in a bad position. We're not in a terrible position.
People get disillusioned a bit by good tournament performances.
Yeah.
I think though we tried to negate that transfer, the whole kind of pushback of international tournament, because we kept negotiating with players who weren't at the tournament when we were there. Yeah, but they just didn't come through, like Branthwaite. Like, we were negotiating with him, secured a contract, agreement with him, and put bids in for Everton while the Euros and Copa America were still going on. Yeah. It's just that didn't materialise.
Yeah.
And then De Ligt was obviously at the tournament but didn't play, and that's why then De Ligt stuff, I guess, is happening now. And it's not like Bayern are trying their best to hide it. They want to sell him. They've told the players they're not part of the plans. You're not in the team.
I'm sure De Ligt's agreed personal terms with us.
He has. They both have. So it's just a weird one. I feel like any moment now, like that siren emoji will come with David Ornstein's little exclusive, like he did with the double bid. That's the other thing I was going to say. The double bid shows that it's not like we don't have the cash to basically get there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the double bid was, exactly cash amount.
Yeah, it didn't specify.
But it was said that the people involved in the deal, i.e. United and the players' camps,
expected it to be
accepted. Yeah. So it seems we're in the ballpark.
Yeah. I feel like it's weird, isn't it? Because technically no sales have happened. But then I guess United obviously just want to stay as safe as possible by making sure they get sales in. But
yeah, it just seems like it's a difficult line, which obviously as fans, we're suffering here.
Yeah.
We want more transfers. We want to be because it's that as soon as the season starts in a couple of days, we play City. Let's say we don't lose or whatever. There'll be a bit more of a distraction, and the stuff about the stadium came out the other day as well. Quick segue. I really like the stuff that came out about the stadium. Yes, I've always been fairly. Well, it's what I said months ago on this podcast. I said the best idea, if it's possible, is build a new stadium and then keep Old Trafford in a reduced capacity for the academy and the women's team. The storyline of the academy players when they're kids playing at the Cliff or the new Carrington, and then coming through once they get older, they start to experience Old Trafford, which lets them understand the proper history of the club as they're playing under 16s, 18s, 21s at Old Trafford, then graduate to the new big stadium because they're in the big league and the big first team. That I love.
Do you know what on that? It's interesting because I think not every youth game, and it won't be full capacity, but I think our 21s and under 18s, with how United is different to any other English club with the focus on the youth and the youth teams, and especially Garnacho, Mainu, now Collier and Amas coming through under Ten Hag. I feel like if people can actually get there rather than having to slug out to Lee somehow on a bus or something, then I think there'll be good attendances,
Mate,
for the 21s, for the women's team.
It's the same reason my college basketball is, and college NFL or whatever is so popular. Like you see, like obviously, because these crowds, like the William Bryce Stadium, I think is a college stadium, isn't it? The one where we played Liverpool,
It's
and it's like 77 or 80,000 seat stadium that fills out with like college players playing.
Yeah,
and
nuts.
as much as people may argue, like, oh, do you want as much of an intense scrutiny on the academy for these players who are 16 and chucking them in front of 30,000 crowds? If they want to be Man United players, they've got to be able to kind of watch the crowds. And also, I feel like people don't care as much when an academy team loses. They're not going to be there being like, oh,
for God's sake.
Yeah, like why did that player do this player? Like there's been no Sky Sports analysis after the games.
I was at Cobham, Chelsea's training ground the other night. Lovely place, by the way. And they had an academy team playing whilst I was doing a coach personal development course. On one pitch, the next pitch, academy's having a game. Now, I don't know what age group it was. I assume it's a younger age group, but a lot of clubs, they have like 18s, 21s, and they will play at the training ground or like say at Lee Sports Village. I think it'd be great if we could get a 30,000, crowd for 18, 21 games regularly.
And the women's
also,
team
like,
as well.
The atmosphere, the women's team, but also for the academy specifically, the atmosphere of being in like a proper full-sized stadium.
That helps their development.
That's their mental development, massively.
It's like a dress rehearsal.
Also, imagine the flex of being able to say our academy plays in a bigger stadium with bigger crowds than some Premier League clubs.
Yeah.
That'd be such a flex.
I perfectly understand why people would be against Old Trafford, because there's almost an element of if you reduce Old Trafford's size and then put it into as an academy women's team, some people may view that as a bit of a disrespect to Old Trafford or whatever. But at the end of the day, the alternative realistically is going to be knocking it down.
Yeah, it's the best
which
of both worlds.
no one really wants to see Old Trafford get smashed to bits by a wrecking ball. So this is a great way to preserve it.
Yeah.
And if we have a campus in the kind of Old Trafford area, it's been one of the biggest regeneration projects ever in the UK. It'll do so much wonders for the club, and I feel like a lot of people who are against it at the moment maybe don't quite see that.
I think, like, economically speaking as well, for the City of Manchester, it'd be massive because you obviously had what City did with their stadium, and that's a full campus as well. Old Trafford, the city in general, a lot of money's gone into like regenerating the city. It actually make Manchester like a thriving city. Not that that's relevant, okay. I did an economics degree, of course. I'm gonna have to mention it, but I just think that'd be like a smart economic decision.
Yeah. It's just and just a big stadium, modern stadium,
But
and you can have just so much
As
around
long
it.
as it's not just one of those like soulless bowls. You know?
Huh?
Yeah.
At least give us something
I don't
different.
want it to be like Spurs. You know what? One thing I do really like about Old Trafford, which I hope they keep, is the shape.
Yeah. 100%.
If they can keep it in a bit more of a rectangle shape, then I think, because I think that's why Old Trafford feels so big when you go in there, is because it's not curved. Even like along the bylines, it's not curved.
There's like
it's
rafts
flat
on the top.
wall. Yeah, there's like 4 flat walls. Almost, obviously, you've got the little bends on the sides where the corner flags are. If they can keep that kind of shape, which in the reports there have been, like, where it says like this is where the stadium would be. The stadium seems to be that kind of shape. I think they will, because one of the reasons Old Trafford obviously is so iconic. The same with Anfield. I forgot the name of it for a second. Again, it's because it's square block. I will be annoyed if we have a bowl. I like the squareness or the rectangularness, whatever the word is. That's one thing I really want to see kept.
Last thing on if Old Trafford went to youth, it's like when the Garnacho and Mainu side won the Youth Cup, a lot of those players mentioned it, and Reece Bennett mentioned it the other day when he played in front of that big crowd. He was like, we don't get, like, as young players, they don't often get to play in front of big crowds. And when Garnacho and Mainu did, like, I'm sure Garnacho didn't really feel phased coming into the first team a few months after in the next season when he'd just scored 2 goals in front of 70,000 fans at Old Trafford. Like, obviously, mentally for them, I think if they can get regular 15, 20,000, obviously sell out in some games,
and the
it would be good
point,
for their
that as a selling
development.
point for academy players as well. I know we've convinced Chido Obi Martin to come, blah, blah, blah. But if you've got the selling point of saying, bro, once you hit the under-18s, you'll be playing against you. Like, especially like if I was 17 years old, and I was a really good footballer, and one club went, you can come and you'll play in our play in the training ground every week, or you can come and you can play at Old Trafford every week from 17 to 21 or whatever, and then move on to that's a massive selling point because I want to play in front of crowds.
To be fair, I don't know if it would just be the 21s who would play there.
It shows that they're invested in.
Well,
yeah,
I'm assuming it'll be 18s and 21s.
I feel like 18s would probably stay at Carrington,
or maybe the bigger
for certain games, but yeah.
But even then, I think it's a great selling point, and we have to move on now to an even bigger stadium, a game which is maybe not so significant in the Community Shield at Wembley Stadium.
Significant if we win.
Significant if we win. If we lose, it's another pre-season friendly. Yeah. That's just how this game works. But it's as much as you want to say that, it's still a big game.
I think a lot of throughout, obviously United didn't win the Community Shield. We've won it a lot, but it wasn't an important thing to win at the start of seasons for Sir Alex Ferguson's team, and that was partly because they were a winning machine mentality monsters. Like winning an essential pre-season game at the start of the season didn't mean anything. Whereas with this team, I do also think, obviously Arsenal didn't win the league last year, but they took it very seriously last year against City, and I know a lot of their fans was almost like, it was nice to see that we could beat City in a game. Obviously over the course of the season, it didn't really matter, but I do think that that's how United should approach it, because for us, if we can win that game, I think it will give them a nice boost going into the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne really said about Louis van Gaal, he treated every single pre-season game like a cup final, and I think Ten Hag is very much the same. Yeah. He wants that mentality instilled in the players, and he's going to say to them, look, it might not be big silverware, this is silverware, this is a chance to get one over on City again, right? And for him as well, if they beat City again, that's a big thing for him in terms of buy-in into his ideas and his system. So I think he's going to be looking at this game and thinking, right, we have got to win this, and that kickstarts our season very well. Like last season, our first game was Wolves. We didn't play great. We,
scraped the
win. Thank you.
Onana punched someone.
Yeah. The next game, Spurs, we got robbed by the I mean, granted, Onana did punch someone in the game before, but Spurs, we did get robbed by the ref a bit. So it wasn't the best start.
Yeah, it was a bit bleak.
Now, if we beat Man City, right now, granted it's the Community Shield, but he'll play a few academy players and stuff, I think, but he's not gonna put out just a piss take team. He's gonna put a respectable team out. And we won't have our entirely strongest team probably either, but if we get a win in that game, then that shows teams right, we're actually gonna try and be serious this season. I'm not saying challenge for the league or anything, but we are actually
competitive.
We're turning a corner on last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to think who's going to start for United, because you think if everyone was fit, United starting 11 is pretty obvious, right? But this game, half the best players have only had a week's training, 4 or 5 days training.
Yeah, so it'll be a mix.
So it's like the big things are who starts at striker, who starts, and the two players that start behind Bruno, and maybe even to an extent who starts at right back and left back. Because centre back, let's say Lindelof's not playing, Maguire's not playing, Yoro's injured, that leaves Evans and Lucho Martinez as our only two defenders.
Casemiro potentially.
So let's not even go there. Because Lisandro Martinez will start. Doesn't matter that he's not played any pre-season games. He will start. I'm so confident of that. Same with Bruno Fernandes. They will both start because it's a game at Wembley. Ten Hag. I think that's his two biggest outfields kind of certainties.
Yeah.
And then you've got Kobbie Mainoo. You'd say
he'll be on the bench
any other day, but I reckon he won't start.
Yeah.
I reckon Mason Mount will start, because I feel like Mason Mount's shown enough that he will be able to play in that position, and United will be fine until Mainoo comes back. Because when Mainoo comes back, I think realistically, let's say by the Liverpool game, he'll be starting against Liverpool. But against Fulham, maybe not. Against City, I think probably not. Then you've got who starts at DM. Collier or Casemiro. I reckon it's Casemiro. Yeah. I reckon it's Casemiro. Right back, I reckon Dalot starts over Wan-Bissaka, despite Wan-Bissaka's playing. Left back,
I feel like Harry Amas will start.
I hope Luke Shaw starts, but I have a feeling that it'll be Harry Amas.
Well, I think you've got
I'll tell you what, it'd be a big statement if Ten Hag started Harry Amas.
Yeah,
it'd be a very big statement actually.
I still think.
I think it's a ridiculous. So just interject, but I think starting Harry Amas is just. I don't think it's good for anyone. Yeah, Luke Shaw, admitted, like, it's not like he's had a really grueling season. He's just come back from injury. He played a few games in England. He looked good against England. He went on holiday, but he's a professional footballer. Realistically, he's going to have been doing fitness stuff still. He'd been at Carrington for a week, and Harry Amas is a 17-year-old. Why would you chuck him in? I know we've all seen Kobbie Mainoo do Kobbie Mainoo stuff, but that's Kobbie Mainoo. Harry Amas has shown himself to be good during pre-season, but against Salah he did struggle, and whacking him against Man City final last preparation of the season, like, he's not going to be starting long term. So I feel like you just got to put Shaw in there, maybe give Shaw 70 and then maybe put Harry Amas on if needed, or put Dalot there. But I just feel like starting Harry Amas I don't see the benefit.
I'm going to say I'd rather have Amas play than Dalot
100%,
because I think with Shaw being fit for the season, Amas being an option, Ten Hag is going to want a left-footed left-back. That makes a bigger difference than people realise, by the way. I know it sounds reductive, but like last season, we had no left-footers in the back line all season. That affects your angles of how you play out and stuff. Because imagine, right, your team pressing, right, against a team which you know has no left-footers in the back line. Okay, Dalot's fairly comfortable with his left foot. He's right-footed. You always know they're going to shape to go back inside the pitch, right? So you can adjust your press quite easily to say, right, you're going to come back inside the pitch. All right, we'll just come right into where the play's congested, give us the ball.
Yeah.
You're not going to go on the outside. He's going to want Amas to play just for the fact that the team needs to get used to playing in that way, where they have that left footer on the left who can, you know, open the pitch out for you a bit more.
And also, like, while we did mention that it would be really nice to win this game for momentum and obviously some sort of silverware, even though it's a mocked piece of silverware. But
bragging rights.
Yeah, bragging rights. But I wouldn't say it's like a game where, let's say, Amas starts and he has a poor game and he comes off at half-time, which could be a thing that he does as well. If Shaw could maybe play first half or second half and Amas could do the second, but if he makes a mistake, it's not Fulham on the opening day where it costs us 3 points. It's obviously it's at Wembley. It's a big crowd. There will be pressure.
It's easily forgettable.
But it's not. Oh, he's had a stinker. Like, he's cost us points. It's not too important. It is a pre-season friendly if we lose and a trophy if we win. But yeah, I think he's. I always say that you don't really know how ready a youngster is, because I remember watching Garnacho, and even though he was quality in the academy, I didn't think he was ready for the step up to the first team that following season, and he made it up perfectly. And obviously there was some people were taking the mick out of Ten Hag, thinking that Mainoo was ready to start at the start of last season, and then he comes in and he starts amazing. Amas is a little bit younger, but he will be a bench player if he does kind of come into this. So I think we can trust. The thing is with players like Mainoo and Amas mainly is that they're so technically ready. Like, they're both technically ready for when Mainoo is coming in to play first team football. And Amas I think he is stronger defensively than a lot of people probably thought when they looked at him.
His positioning
it's mainly
needs a
just
bit
in
of
his
work.
mind.
Yeah.
It's in his mind.
And he's a kid at the end of the day. Like, that is going to happen.
His one-on-one defending and his intensity in certain moments. Like, I think he pickpocketed Salah at one point and it created an attack. So he's really aggressive and good in those moments. But yeah, like, I think it's mainly when he's a bit deeper, someone's running off of his shoulder and he's not really scanning potentially.
I think
there's little bits like that he needs to improve on.
Another thing is he understands the instructions Ten Hag wants in terms of his wingers as well going forward. So Ten Hag wants his winger and his fullback to be on what you call opposite lines. So if the winger's on the outside, the fullback comes inside, but vice versa. And someone like Rashford, people talk a lot, oh, why is he on the touchline? Why is he on the touchline, right? It's just such a reductive way of looking at it. You need to understand, right? Rashford's at his best when he can start wide and come inside.
Yeah.
Now, if Amas understands that Rashford is going to start wide, he'll come inside, then he will go around Rashford. That will create the space for Rashford to then come inside. And that is where you want Rashford to be able to come inside from wide. And that's where he's going to do his damage. And I think, actually, on the point of the striker, I think Sancho's going to start at the false nine, because then you could have Amas here, he's going to come out, Rashford's here, Rashford can link up with Sancho can release Rashford, and then suddenly Rashford's in. But in the FA Cup final, we saw Rashford. He was in the split striker positions, but when you actually look at how the team was set up, a lot of the time McTominay and Bruno took up the inside positions.
Well, how he set up Garnacho, he was very
Rashford and
wide,
Garnacho started
across.
wide, but Rashford, if it wasn't Kyle Walker on the recovery, Rashford could have had like a good few goals that game because he was coming from wide, he kept getting inside, he kept getting in behind.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that Kyle Walker's ridiculously fast.
So we're all saying Sancho at striker over Xerxes because I reckon Sancho will be, because I don't see. I don't see the point of not starting Sancho to start Xerxes. Considering that Sancho has played 2 games now, there. The only other way I'd see it is if we dropped Sancho and then played Bruno as a false 9 instead.
No,
because we did but that's the only other way I can see it happening.
Ten Hag wants to take this game seriously, like you said, he's similar to Van Gaal. They take every single game seriously, but I do think that he's obviously going to have one eye on Fulham, and I think Xerxes probably gets 25, 30 minutes off the bench and then starts against Fulham.
Yeah.
And then midfield behind Bruno is...
I think Mount Casemiro.
Mount Casemiro.
Which is funny because last summer that was meant to be the ideal midfield.
Yeah. I would absolutely love to see Toby Collier play though, honestly. We're talking about Amas at left back being responsible. I would love to see Ten Hag just be like, right, Collier, you've played well pre-season. I'm actually going to chuck you in.
It would be a nice show of like intent there, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because he's got like the fundamentals right now to be a decent squad player, and it's just about seeing whether he can do it in obviously, like we've said, it's not completely competitive, but at Wembley against a massive team like that would be a good test for him.
Whatever you think about it, it's still a step up from a pre-season friendly.
And he is much more ready than Amas.
Yeah,
he's 20 years old. He's been playing under 21s football basically since he came here 2 years ago, which is why no one really knew about him, because the 18s get a lot more, I'd say, media coverage because they're actually shown on MUTV. So yeah, he's kind of gone about his business slowly, really came into it at the end of last season, and now he's showing that he's a really useful, but I think he can be a really useful player this year.
He's got legs, physicality, he's got a lot of the things that we're lacking. But my last thing is I want to say, I'm going to go through my team, all right? What I would say. So let's say, for argument's sake, that Maguire and Lindelof aren't fit. I'm going to go, obviously, Onana in goal, Dalot at right back, Lissandra's one of my centre-backs, and you're not going to like it, I'm going to say Casemiro, because
then it makes space for Collier.
Yeah, and honestly, I know he had a few stinks that I would rather see Casemiro at centre-back than Evans. I do just trust it against Haaland a bit more. Casemiro's might not quite be the same. I do just think, no offence to Evans, like, look, when we got him in, like, he was just supposed to be like a guy to have around. I don't think anyone expected him to be playing as much as he did, and given context, he did a decent job, but I would rather see Casemiro playing at centre-back, personally, than Evans. Lisandro Martinez, Harry Amas, if Luke Shaw is not entirely fit, but obviously if Luke Shaw's fit, I'd give him the first 45. Collier, then Mount and Fernandes, Ahmad on the right, Sancho in the middle, Rashford off the left.
Yeah, I mean, Ahmad's been brilliant.
We've got to mention Ahmad, haven't we?
I think you know what I was going to say, it's kind of nice almost that we aren't even debating who's on the right wing, right? He's just made it his own.
Yeah, he really has.
Oh, what a player, man! What a player!
I don't know if you saw me last week, just like absolutely.
With 5 minutes of just Ahmad glazing. The other thing to remember in the Community Shield is there are 6 subs. I didn't know this until yesterday. Yeah. So in Premier League, obviously, you normally get 5, but there are 6 subs. So you mentioning like 40, there might be 2 changes.
I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense. Amas and Shaw doing 45 each.
Yeah, Amas and Shaw doing 45, and maybe if Evans starts, then it'll be Casemiro and Collier also do 45 each.
Yeah.
Etc.
Even if Maguire starts, could be Maguire does 45, Evans does 45.
What do we think about score predictions?
I'll go 2-1 United again.
2-1 United. Yusuf?
I'm going to let you go first.
I'm going, United win on pens. 2-2 game, United win on pens.
Would it go straight to pens?
I think it does, yeah.
I'm going to go 2-1 United as well.
2-1 United, 2-1 United. I'm saying 2-2 win on pens. Right, let us know your score predictions below. Who's winning? Who's scoring? Man United are winning. Ahmad scoring twice. I don't know who's scoring for City, let's say Haaland. But thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.